we're talking about dog food. Is that what was
I thought we were
that?
talking about Reagan.
What was the? I watched that movie over the weekend. If
Wait,
you're a
was Ronald
Reagan
Reagan on
fan,
Rawhide?
No, Ronald Reagan's code name was Rawhide.
Oh, for the Secret Service?
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
I
I didn't
watched
know
that
that.
movie over the weekend. The new one that has been kept very, very secret and wasn't publicized a lot. If you're a pro Reagan guy, it's a great movie. If you have your issues with Reagan, you're gonna hate it. So, which obviously Hollywood has issues with it.
What's it called?
Reagan.
Oh, gets the point across.
Creative name.
Yeah. Let me see.
It's a Gipper. What did Ronald Reagan drive?
That works too.
Did
When?
Ronald
What
Reagan
part of his
drive?
life?
Well, I mean,
That's
so
the question.
let's say, I don't know, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s when he was an actor and not yet a politician.
And I'm sure he drove. I'm sure he had cars. I've never thought about that. I never thought to
I'm trying to remember what they
inquire.
had they had
Like you
him
see-
driving.
You
in
see,
the
like
movie.
Jimmy Stewart hawking DeSoto's in the late 30s. So, like, the celebrity car placement thing was around.
Well, he was hawking everything.
Why-
at one
Have you seen about a 18-foot long car, about 5 feet tall, grayish in color?
They weren't that big in 1938.
I
the
was
most-
just throwing it out.
The most recent Reagan movie has Dennis Quaid playing Ronald Reagan. Like I said, but you can tell Hollywood's trying to keep it down because the movie hasn't been in theaters for almost 8-9 months, and you still have to pay $6 to $20 to stream it. It's not a free stream movie. Hell, even Barbie from last summer is free now. So I think it's Hollywood keeping it down that they don't want the good ship Reagan out. The good ship lollipop. It's a great.
8 years.
I know there's footage of him driving a Jeep post-presidency, right? Or even maybe during his presidency or out on his ranch in California.
Yeah, well, he had the Jeep on his ranch for quite some time. I think even before he was president, he had the Jeep.
Okay. I mean, that fits with his persona. But obviously, prior to the 70s, a Jeep wasn't the thing you wanted to drive very far around LA, I wouldn't think.
But I don't think he was driving it in Hollywood. I think it was, I don't know.
Right, but that's what I'm asking. Like, what was Ronnie's street car?
I'm going to go to the Googles.
Okay, good.
Ronald Reagan famously drove a red U.S. Army Willys CJ6 around his ranch.
Wait a minute. Army and CJ is a contradiction in terms. CJ means civilian Jeep.
This is Gemini on Google, so.
Okay, so it's all
the Jeep was a Christmas gift from his wife, Nancy, in 1963 and became an iconic part of his presidency. He also used a Subaru Brat and a 1972 Lincoln Continental presidential limousine, which he was shot at. But as far as his personal car, they really don't say.
Wait, Reagan was shot in the street.
No, he was shot. The bullet penetrated him because it hit the chrome trim on the limousine and skated down it and hit him, and that's what came into his arm.
Not the chrome trim. It hit the quarter panel, and the quarter panel was, obviously bulletproof, right? It's lead lined, and it actually flattened the bullet, deflected it. Because the car has suicide doors, there was an opening from the C-pillar to the edge of the door, and the bullet trajectory actually went through that opening at the exact moment he was being, he was diving / being thrown into the car by his Secret Service agent. That's when the bullet penetrated his ribs and lodged near his heart. And if anyone would like to read about that, you can get the book Rawhide Down. And when you read that section, you'll notice there's a footnote. Scroll to the back of the book, read the footnote, and you will learn why call myself a footnote in history.
Even this article on Peek Inside the Ronald Reagan Car Collection, they talk about U.S. Army Willys CJ6, which we know is wrong. And that was a present from Nancy Reagan in 1963. And then in 1983, Mrs. Reagan gave him a CJ8 Scrambler, which I really wish, that's what the Gladiator should have been called, even though the Gladiator is really not a Scrambler. And then it just talks about his Subaru Brat, which is...
There's a question for you. What has
Still
been
none of those have got legs.
What has been the, like, I don't know if we want to call it the best or the presidential limousine?
The
Yeah.
best presidential limousine?
Yeah, like what was the best choice? Or a presidential vehicle, motorcade, or a motor pool vehicle.
Wilson had a Pierce Arrow, right? That was.
Oh yeah, it's still around. I've seen that car in person.
Yeah.
Great car.
Wasn't he the first one to have a car?
No, that was Taft, right?
Taft. Yep, William Howard Taft.
Right, because Teddy Roosevelt was a horseman. He was not impressed by automobiles.
Correct, but Teddy was the first president to ride in an automobile as a president. They did not have a White House fleet, but he rode in an automobile during his presidency.
Sure. Well, he's not the type of guy that would have shirked from anything. I think Teddy Roosevelt's an amazing guy, but he was not an early adopter as far as like believing that cars had a future with him, or perhaps just wasn't interested. They were the smartphone of their era, also in the sense that a lot of people in 1908 looked at him and went, "Does this really have to be the future we're going to have?"
So yeah, I would argue that the Pierce Arrow was, of course, had the vestibule doors and just a beautiful, beautiful car. That and the FDR's Sunshine Special is, to me, a quite beautiful.
That Lincoln, yeah, that was
the Lincoln. Yep.
But unlike any Lincoln, I mean, it's more like a heavy truck with all the armor plating. It's just sort of styled by the Lincoln.
Yeah. But
does that have a V12 in it, the Sunshine Special?
Sorry?
Does that have like a Model K V12 in it, the Sunshine Special?
Yeah, because it's a 39 Model K that was updated to the Continental front end in 41. I don't remember. I used to know that because I used to take care of the car, but
there's some piece of lore out there about FDR making use of Capone's armored limo, like a 31 Cadillac or something, or 30.
Is
there any truth to that?
As far as I know, that was disproven by records from the White House. I think there was a Cadillac that was very similar that the Secret Service used, and I think that it just got, again, I read this story years ago, I think it got twisted into them using, Capone's Cadillac.
Right. FDR had personally
Google it, and it talks about, a lot of him using Capone's Cadillac, but is it truth or myth, whatever? So I'm not going to read all these articles to get the right answer. And they said Capone's car was basically not bulletproof, just bulletproof glass. So later on,
bullet resistant to 30 meters, like a wristwatch.
Yeah, just like the Tesla Cybertruck. 1939 Lincoln Sunshine Special was the first fully armored.
The the FDR personally had some cool cars too. He liked roadsters. So he had like a 36 Ford, and there's footage of him in a Willys Roadster, which Willys wasn't even making roadsters in the United States by the time of that car, so it must have been some custom job. But a lot of kind of interesting cars running around Hyde Park with hand controls in it. I wonder how many of those still exist. I know the Packard he used when he was governor of New York is in the State History Museum in Albany. I've seen that.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a beautiful car. But really, I mean, it was cooler when presidents could still use like really fancy normal cars because it made them a little more relatable. I mean, having them roll around in armored Suburbans is like, they don't really seem like they're of the people at that point.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, I roll around in my armored Suburban all the time.
Because I was just thinking, like actually given the number of armored looking friggin' Suburbans and stuff I see on the road every day, it kind of does. But I guess, we emulate our leaders, right? So if we don't see a kinder, gentler kind of example, we don't follow it anyway.
Yeah. But now I'm going to go out and buy an armored Suburban. I don't know why. Just for the fun of it.
Well, one of the good things about a Suburban is that it's one of the cars that is expected to last over 200,000 miles.
Oh, nice talk, John.
As I've done my car shopping over the last few weeks and looking at cars, it really got thinking in my head. A lot of cars are out there, 180,000 miles or something, but you damn well are going to be the last owner unless you buy a huge pile of Toyotas make the list. The Honda Ridgeline makes the list, and the Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon family. Oh, and I guess the Ford Expedition makes the list also, but we don't know which. I don't know exactly which model here.
I was going to say, I've never seen any Expeditions that look that healthy.
That one kind of
Ridgelines just make my skin crawl. Like they're weird, right?
But the question becomes which generation, right? I don't remember which generation. It's the newer generation.
First generation Ridgeline is what I think.
No. We were talking about the Expedition. I thought.
Oh, Expedition. What are we talking? I'm thinking it has to be.
Yeah, the Expedition that's on the list is the newest generation.
Well, that's the picture, but is that the one they're really talking about?
And how do they know it'll go 200,000 miles? How long has this generation been out?
The full-size body-on-frame Expedition has been on the market almost 25 years. That's the entire run. Well, the current generation has been around since 2018.
Well, that's enough time.
Yeah, powered by a turbocharged 3.5-liter V6. The Expedition starts at an entirely reasonable 50 or so grand. I don't really agree with that, but I think that's a little ridiculous.
No, it's very relative. Yeah,
it starts at 50.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the version with the 3 on the tree and the roll-up windows that no dealer in the country actually has in stock. But
and Ford doesn't actually make, but it's listed.
It's listed. It's like the heater and the radio on the '53 Corvette. Theoretically, you don't have to take them, but somebody else will.
You know how we were talking last week, and we were touched on the cars of 1923.
I mean, is that every week?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and Derek was very arrogant. Oh yes, and I know the guy who leased them. But I was watching an episode of the Studio with Seth Rogen on Apple TV Plus.
Oh, the TV show 1920. Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. And he was talking about he's got a 1953 Corvette, or he was getting harassed about having one as his character in the show. And they go, oh, and it's the third one ever made. Correct me if I'm wrong, Derek. What colors did the 1953 Corvette come in?
Oh, that would be polo white with a red interior.
Yeah, he had a green car on the show. A green 53 Corvette.
With an Oldsmobile V8 swapped in.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Which was the thing people did.
No, if it was green, if it was green, it was the Bonneville.
with a hopped up flathead straight 8. Now that is a car I'd like to see replicated. Yeah.
Oh yeah, tell me.
Actually, heck, I'd like to have that in a Chieftain convertible.
He had to sell it off to Chris Helmsworth or something because of something for $2 million, which I also was going, there's not a 53 Corvette on the planet worth $2 million.
Well, once you put the old V8 in and paint it green, it is.
Yes.
Ah.
No, it's just another one of those TV car things.
Is there $1 million Corvette?
Yes.
Which one?
Oh yeah.
Lots of them.
A lot of the serial number ones, they're VIN number ones. What Mr. H just spent, was it $3 million on VIN number 1 ZR1 or Z06?
I don't know if you
I
can
think it's
call
Z06.
I don't know if you can call the ones at Barrett Jackson that are VIN number 1 $1 million Corvettes because they're charitable contributions. And the money
still,
but the money donated is increased because of the charitable tax write-off of the car. I would
increased
not classify
much.
don't know if I would classify those as $1 million Corvettes, but I was thinking, like, aren't the mid-year big tank cars in that 7-figure range now?
Yeah, the SS was sold for, was it 7 million?
Yeah,
the Corvette SS out of Indianapolis.
Yeah, but that's a prototype. That's not a production Corvette.
You didn't classify production or prototype. You said, okay. Are there any $1 million Corvettes?
Are there any $1 million production Corvettes? Like big tank, big brake cars are kind of what I had in mind, but I honestly, I am interested in old cars to almost the exclusion of value. So please enlighten me as to what the Corvette faithful are paying for their most desirables and what they are. I'm curious.
The most expensive Corvette ever sold was what Derek just referred to at $7.7 million. And it surpassed the previous record of a 67 L88 coupe, which sold for $3.85 million.
Yeah, the L88s go for big money.
Then they do the 2020 Stingray VIN 1, the 2025 VIN 1 ZR1, 1963 Corvette Rodine.
Rondine.
Yeah, was modified by Pininfarina for 1.6.
Not modified. Coach built by Pininfarina.
So non-fiberglass body on that, then I assume.
Corvette
yeah.
L89.
Honestly,
Resto mod for 1.7. So,
yeah. Honestly, I think of most of the coach-built Corvettes. The 3 Scagliettis are quite beautiful. The Scaglietti body is a beautiful look, but it's really leaning towards the race car, right? Because that was Carroll Shelby and everything there. But I think out of all of the coach-built Corvettes that are out there, the Rondine is, to me, the most beautiful of those Corvettes. And John, I don't know if you can pull up a picture and put it up, but
actually, I just came across a picture of one.
It is truly,
you know what I love?
Gorgeous car.
Our Isogrifos, which are not really coach-built Corvettes, but sort of in the same spirit with the Chevrolet V8 drivetrain. Oh my God!
Yeah, I mean they're a complete car that they just use the Corvette power plant in. But yeah, Isos are just stunning cars.
I had the privilege of visiting a really cool shop out in Maryland that they restore all kinds of vintage sports cars, but Isos were sort of a house specialty. And oh my gosh, the stuff they had in there in all different stages, restorations. You could see like the space frame chassis and all that jazz exposed on them. And I mean, and these guys did just beautiful work. They had the wiring all laid out in a couple of these cars. And smell the leather interiors. It's like, man, now this is, if I had been a person of money and taste in the late 60s, that would have been where I would have gravitated had they been on my radar. Because those things are just stylish as all get out. And I know I like driving a hot 327 and a 4-speed, no question.
Oh yeah, yeah. When we did the Corvette powered exhibit at Corvette Museum, we had an Iso Grifo, we had a couple Bizzarinis, we had a really great selection of Corvettes or Corvette engine cars. Yeah, there's the Rondine. It just, to me, just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, Italian coach building in that era. I will be honest, I'm not that into 70s Italian coach building, but gosh, I do like their stuff from the 60s and the 50s.
Here's the top 10 Corvettes. 67 Chevrolet Corvette convertible resto mod by Jeff Hayes for 1.1 million. Then we go to 1963 Chevrolet Corvette Z06 split window coupe, 1.242. That 63 Rone was 1.6. This one that I don't classify because, like you say, there's a charitable contribution. The 2019 Z06 last produced 2.7. 69 Corvette 57 Rebel race car.
Oh yeah, the Rebel.
Tell me about that one. My dad had a 69 coupe. That's pretty near and dear to my heart, so I'm curious.
So Rebel Vet is still to this day one of the winningest Corvettes in history. But due to the shame of it is, John, scroll up a little bit so we can see the picture of the car.
Well,
the shame of it is, scroll up so we can see Rebel. So this is Rebel Vet. The guys that built this car they wanted to build a race car that they could go up against the Greenwood brothers with. And of course, the spirit of 76 Corvette, the spirit of Le Mans, all of those cars that those guys built. And they were not, I'm trying to think of how to say this. Basically, all of the Greenwood Corvettes had American flags on, and they were American flag themed. Spirit of 76, spirit of this, spirit of that. And these guys wanted to build a car that they felt could compete and hopefully defeat them. And they thought, what would be the right paint job to say that we are their absolute competition on track? And so they decided that the Rebel flag would be the right thing. Well, and again, this is in the late 60s, early 70s, and well, I think early 70s. So there wasn't as much, cultural, social issue behind this. Today, the car pretty much stays hidden because, all of the issues around the idea that it's painted with the Rebel flag, which, I think Dave and, I think us as historians, I hate the fact that this car doesn't get out very much because it needs to be seen. Its story needs to be told. And, because of a paint job, people are afraid to have this thing out and be seen. And to me, it's unfortunate.
Now, right. I mean, anything uncomfortable like that from history needs to be discussed and not hidden. That's my feeling on cars and statues and whatnot. But I kind of meant, what was the deal with the engine and the chassis? Like, what made this a hot race car?
Well, according to the text here that Derek made me scroll away from, it was basically the underpinnings of the rare Corvette L88, which only 20 were made. So that's basically it. Is it was a lightweight L88 fitted with open chamber heads and dual disc clutches.
Interesting. Very interesting.
7-liter, 430 horsepower. It ran in 1971.
Yeah. L88 had 430 horsepower in my hat.
Well, it was for the insurance company.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and so if you wanted to be able to say you bought the top horsepower car, you'd go in and buy the 435 horse, which was a tractable street motor, and not the 430, which was a cantankerous racetrack oriented son of a gun. Oh, that's cool. That's very interesting. Yeah. Unfortunate paint scheme, but it has to be looked at, like you said, in the context of its time period. Just sort of like the who were the guys who were always folding the Chargers in half? The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anti-establishment.
Yeah, I was actually walking through a store the other day and I was looking at the Alabama state flag, and I was wondering when are they going to start pushing to have that changed?
Oh, I remember that conversation happening in the 90s even.
Yeah, but we were still selling General Lee's with stars and bars on the roof in the 90s too, but we can't do that anymore.
Well, I mean, nobody's stopping you. It's just you may not sell it, but the state government isn't selling itself. The state government is problematically endorsing the view. So, but back to cars.
Well, I heard a story this week too that one state's prohibiting the use of the Virginia state flag in elementary school education because it has a depiction of some Roman goddess who's topless, and that's showing nudity to grade school children.
Hey, there was
Giggity.
a scandal in 1916 about quarters having the goddess Liberty with bare breasts on them. So nothing is new under the sun.
Well, 1969 Corvette ZL1 sold for that's the fourth most expensive Corvette. That was a $3.14 million car.
ZL1 is that's the
Great
all
car.
aluminum.
All aluminum.
Yeah.
67 Corvette L88 convertible, which is a real, whoever proofread this, Corvette L88 Corvette convertible, 3.4 million. That's another one that I don't count, the 2023 Corvette Z06 VIN01.
Bold of you to assume that there's proofreading on any of this.
And 1967 Corvette L88 Coupe, 3.85 million. Now, obviously, this article is a little bit dated because we know that other one sold for 7.7.
So it seems like the secret to $1 million vintage Corvette is to have an L88. It's odd that there's C3s. I mean, C2s are really like usually the collector darling, but I suppose there are more L88 C3s than there are L88 C2s around.
Yeah, the C2. Well, let's see. I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, because the L88 was developed in late 66 and only made it into a handful of 67s and then went into the 68 and 69s.
The tracks. And how many ZL1s were there? I mean, not many. Weren't there more Camaros than Corvettes with ZL1s?
I believe Corvette ZL1, that's the one they only did 2.
Okay. And then there were like 69 Camaros that got them.
Yeah.
Here's one.
Dragging up information from years ago, so I may be off.
I know, but this is great. I haven't really thought about Corvettes like this in a while because, my dad liked his car.
Me either.
My dad always said that the 1969 Corvette literature listed the LT1, but you couldn't actually get it till 70 Was it actually listed in the 69 literature?
I don't know the answer to that, Dave. I'd have to go back and look at the literature.
Well, dang it. I've tapped the bottom then. Okay, well, next topic.
Well, I think we were supposed to be talking about 200,000 mile vehicles.
Oh, instead we ended up on $1 million Corvettes.
Yeah. Much
Well,
more important topic.
That's the way these car conversations go.
Yeah, my Yukon became unprofitable to further service at 225,000 miles. So
Yeah,
it did.
I was thinking
It's
BF
so long from the list.
Suburban's. I think BF Suburban's got 320,000 on it, and he still drives it every day.
It's because you live in the
Yeah.
South.
Well, but here's here's the question. What's going to be the determining factor, right? Because I'm guessing, Dave, what year was your?
Oh, 3.
And it was Tahoe, right?
No, it was a Yukon XL.
Yukon, sorry. So I'm going to guess both of these vehicles had the 5.7.
Yes. No, 5.3.
Or yeah,
It
the
was 5.3 or
5.3.
6.0 in those years. Yeah.
Yeah, 5.3. But there's the real thing. I mean, that 5.3 engine, that family of engine was amazing. I mean, it was very difficult to kill that engine.
Yeah. No, I never had a problem with the engine. It killed the transmission and finally killed the brake lines, but the engine never missed a beat.
Yeah. Tyler Hoovy on YouTube, his mechanic wizard is now doing YouTubes also, and he had one discussing cars to buy for under $10,000, and he highly recommended the 01 through 06 maybe Silverado that had that the 5.3 in it, because
Yeah,
they're
I mean, the
so
same
dependable and
platform
easy
as
to
the.
fix.
Yeah. A lot of those trucks had 4.8s in them, though, and not 5.3s.
Well, it's
And let's see, 01. Yeah, by 01, they fixed the chassis issues.
See here,
Because it
Carl
was the
221 on his 91 Suburban, 304 on his 85 C30, 145 on his 06 Magnum, and 115 on his 07 Focus.
The
Jumps in with 291 on his 05 F-150. I got 160 on my 15 Fiesta, so it just all
actually, well, I've got 134,000 on my 2003 F-250 right now.
nice.
So you can it's Dave was kind of saying it a little bit before the show and I shut him up, so if he wants to expand on it, he was feeling it comes a lot down to maintenance on the vehicle and the way the owners treat them.
Yeah, I stand by that the Toyotas are on the list because they'll make it to 200,000 miles without you touching them. But I think that the trucks are on the list because the people who keep those trucks around that long are willing to keep working on them. And further they can, because all of the stuff on those big truck framed vehicles is, relatively speaking, easy to get at and service and replace, and is designed to be replaced. And a lot of vehicles just aren't built with service in mind anymore.
There's not tons of technology in them. And a lot of those F-150s and Suburbans and Silverados, etc., are bought by corporations which have a religious maintenance schedule. And then, of course, they get sold off when they're fully depreciated out with probably low to mid, 100,000, 150,000 miles. So the next guy who gets them gets a car that might have been abused a little bit by the driver, but was very well maintained mechanically. So, I mean, I think there's something to the maintenance, but, to me, Toyota owners are probably some of the worst for maintenance in that. I had Ed Kowalczyk on the show a few years ago before he passed away. And he had a friend that drove a Toyota Avalon with like 140,000 miles on it. And the guy never changed the oil. And he came over to Ed's house one night and Ed said something to him. And Ed said, well, let's go into my shop and change the oil. So they changed the oil. And Ed said, now, if you get to 10,000 miles, come over, we'll have a beer, we'll change the oil. And guy came over a couple months later and it was, how many miles you put on the car? And it was like 35,000 since the last oil change. So he drugged the car into his shop, changed the oil, and sent the oil off for testing just to see what it would do. And, this Avalon's 150,000 miles at the time. And the lab sent it back and said, you can continue to use the oil, put it back in. Because like you said, Dave, the cars are so well built, they don't, I guess there's no friction.
And I feel like this is one of the reasons I don't want to drive a Toyota, is because I don't want to be seen as someone who can only drive a car that can just be literally left as a sealed system and never touched until you decide you're bored with it. Like, it's antithetical to my personality.
But here's I want to pitch a question to Dave. If that's your modern daily driver, is it okay if you have a few collector cars that you maintain? Like, where would you rather spend the time maintaining and doing the work on your older cars and not worry about your modern car, or do you want to spend time on your modern car as well?
This is an interesting point and something that I wrestle with a lot. And for me, it basically comes down to that I can't afford anything nice enough that it's going to be trouble-free. So I'm really like, do I want a boring late model piece of broken junk, or do I want a more interesting early model piece of broken junk? And when the junk breaks, can I work on it? So like, the Corvair is sort of an expression of that impulse. But then sometimes I think maybe I'd like to sell the Corvair and drive something that I don't worry about and have a Model A instead, because I know at the end of the day, I can't be running back and forth, 100 miles every day at 70 miles an hour in a 1928 Ford. It's just not practical. But I could drive one all around town, which is sort of how I'm using my Corvair anyway, since I've got the F-250 now. So I don't know is the answer to that question, but I definitely see the point. But at the moment, it's like, I'm spending the money on maintenance, whether it's on a new car or on an old car, and it's more gratifying to spend it on the old car.
See, I go back to my friend Ed. He just loved working on cars, and he had a Model A and an MGA and a couple of toy Porsches and things. And he drove a Nissan full-size truck for a while. And when he passed, he was driving a Dodge Ram 1500 or something. I think he did a lot of work for Nissan and Ford. And I think he just enjoyed, he liked tinkering with the old stuff, but doing the oil changes and being able just to do a little bit on the new stuff kept him a little bit involved. And it's the way he bonded with his cars. Me, I would just love a sealed system that I could drive forever and just throw it away. That's the way I work with, my daily drivers and that. I just kind of Derek's question. I would rather play with my toys than maintain my tools. And that's kind of how I look at my modern cars that I drive. But I go back to my friend Cal's. This is in 1990, 91. He had an International Scout, the SUV thing, not the truck, where we bungee corded the fenders. There's a bungee cord in the back holding the fenders in because they would flap around otherwise. It was that rusted out, and he'd plow with it in the winter. And it was originally sold with a sealed coolant system, and it's had a big sticker on it that you never had to open the coolant and never had to change the coolant. Now, by 91 on this 74 Scout, the coolant had been changed once or twice. sometimes because of a hole in the radiator. But even in the mid 70s, they were looking at the don't ever trying to get the maintenance as far as they can. And that's why cars today can, in theory, with the right oil and the right conditions, go 20,000 miles between oil changes without a blink of the eye. And I think the only reason the manufacturers won't go more than 20 is, well, just in case something's going wrong. But
yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's like vinyl siding and everything else. I mean, Americans are highly allergic to any form of maintenance. They want immediate gratification, and they want to replace it with something new when it's no longer working perfectly. And the market caters to that, and will, as long as there's not some economic counterpoint to it inserted into the system. But if you enjoy working on your cars, I mean, there's a lot of zen to be had in sort of working that garden. I mean, I enjoy setting points and changing oil and stuff like that. And but on the other hand, I enjoy
how much
nice
zen
day
is how much zen is there when you break a bolt?
yeah, there's got to be a lot, actually. That's the real test of your nirvana, Derek, is if you can sit back and go, I have now committed to a weekend of fixing this vehicle. Get the torch. Yeah. No, well, and there's also a time when I know, like I don't do stuff that I know is going to result in a broken bolt on the F-250. I take it to some shop and I say, here, I will pay you $45 an hour to do this instead of me, so that when it does break, it's here amongst all of your tools and you can solve the problem and not me. Which is the argument in favor of having a separate collector cart and not having, something that you have to maintain yourself.
On this list from Auto Week, there's one that really, really surprised me because I usually think of high mileage cars as I said earlier, cars with less options, less electronics, because there's fewer things to go wrong. But one vehicle that made this was the fourth generation Toyota Highlander Hybrid, which was introduced in late 2019. And it just kind of surprised me that a hybrid made this list. And then again, the Toyota Prius made this list. And I have a friend in Colorado who's got a Prius with 200,000 miles on it or something. He's on his third battery pack and he buys them used or something for $2 or $3 grand. But it just gets me that Toyota, even not only do they have the mechanical sorted, they seem to have the electric sorted to be able to have, the Priuses and obviously this Highlander Hybrid semi-reliably go to 200,000 miles. It again kind of surprises me. I question whether or not, you say, I leased this Maverick for 2 years and it's a hybrid. And one reason I leased it for 2 years is, I don't want to own the damn thing outside of warranty. And I'm just terrified of the repairs, even though the electrical components of the hybrid system are actually warranted for 8 years or 100,000 miles, which all, electric cars and the hybrid systems are mandated by the federal government to have that kind of warranty. But it's, like I said, that just kind of surprised me to see a hybrid and an electric on this list of reliable cars.
Well, if it was a non-Toyota, it would be a lot more shocking. But I think you're buying a quality of engineering staff there and a quality of build, assembly.
Yeah, and if we jump to the comments, Neil mentions that Toyotas are built to last. Clearly, his check is in the mail from Toyota for advertising, but no. And then a wonderful quote from Dr. Emmett Brown: "All the best stuff is made in Japan." And Jason, I got to jump in here because Jason in the comments says reliability means boring. It just becomes transportation to and from. But I'm going to be that guy and throw it out that we have to remember that even our collector cars that we play with today, even our Model Ts and our Chevy 490s and our Corvairs and whatever we have, in the day they were new, they were nothing more than transportation to and from. It's just now they're cool because they're old.
Take this watch, buried in the desert for 1,000 years, and even it becomes worthwhile.
Well,
What?
we're
I can quote
talking
movies
about
too.
we're talking about Japanese cars that are reliable and don't break because of we're talking Toyota's engineering and the billions of dollars behind it. But I just had to do a quick Google search, and while there's not an official number that Gemini says, reports indicate that at least 5,300 Teslas have more than 100,000 miles, with a lot being over 200,000, and some Model S's, actually one's got 1.2 million miles on it in that. Is it possible that we're going to see more of these electrics, potentially even hybrids, make these lists because there's fewer? I mean, granted, you have the electrical complexity, but you have fewer moving parts. You have fewer things to wear out, fewer things to break in the overall grand scheme of things. I mean, I'm going to do it again. My Maverick with right now 1,700 miles on it, almost 400 of those miles have been run electric. So does it really have 1,700 miles or does it have 1,200 miles? I mean, the suspension components have it, but what does the engine have? So are we able to get more out of the mechanical gasoline components if we're doing a hybrid? Or
Well, I think that's when you need to look at the chassis has the miles. And then when we start looking at hybrids and things like that, you're going to have to look at engine hours, not miles.
I wonder if the computer is tracking that. I mean, obviously there's no hour counter on the dashboard, but somewhere in the ECM, I wonder if that data is being recorded.
There has to be.
I was going to say, I'm thinking there's a couple of electrics. Maybe the Rivian has an hour meter on it.
That's what they say about old police cars and taxis, is that they may have low miles, but they've got tons and tons of engine hours on it. So they just sit and idle.
At idle, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, John, Jason wants to remind us that back in the early days of No Driving Gloves, we regularly stated that we weren't ever going to mention electric vehicles.
You hypocrites. I never made such a commitment. I've had How to Build Your Own Electric Car on the bookshelf for 20 years now. I haven't made a single step forward toward building that electric car, but I've thought a lot about it, by God. Also, every bit of advice in that book is now way, way out of date, because the current advice is like, go find a Model S and gut it, and then stuff it into whatever you want to be electric.
See, I go old school. I just get a little buckboard and a 12-volt battery and a Dodge starter motor and strap it to the back with a chain on the rear wheel.
Like an auto red bug.
Yes! God, I love auto red bugs. They're so fun. You ever driven one?
Those are really neat.
Fun.
No, I'd kill to.
My God,
that's how ARCA started. So, ARCA, the predecessor of the SCCA from before World War II. Yeah. Those guys started racing those auto red bugs on those service drives before they upgraded to like Austins and MG midgets.
Yeah.
A lot of those electric ones got converted to gas motors, Maytags and such, after the original batteries died on them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and they also had the version that was the Smith Flyer with the
Briggs and Stratton.
Briggs Stratton fifth wheel, and
yeah. Was it A.O. Smith? It doesn't matter. Anyway,
No,
they've got one at the A.
no, I
the
don't think that was
museum
A.O.
too.
Smith. Yeah.
No.
But we have a Smith flyer at the Lane Motor Museum that has a now I'm going to forget the name of it. Aero. What was the brand? Aero. Anyway, it's got a 2-cylinder little aircraft engine with a propeller on it.
That
Propeller.
is interesting. Dave LaChance drove your big propeller car there, and he said the craziest thing about it was not having any engine braking. Like, it's entirely the service brakes doing all of the braking on it.
Yeah. And Clayton has corrected me. It was A.O. Smith. That was the flyer. And
then with Briggs and Stratton, I mean, am I remembering right that the motor wheel thing came first and maybe from Britain, and then actually the industrial, like the rototiller and lawnmower motors and everything came from the buckboard motor, essentially, originally. Like, that was the basis for their small engine business, not the other way around, as you would kind of think looking at Briggs and Stratton.
That sounds right. I feel like that is what occurred.
I mean, if you and I both have that same gut instinct, I'm going to go with it. It's got truthiness about it, for similitude.
Clayton will probably jump in and say no, but.
Well, thankfully, we have to read his comments aloud. I can't even look at the comments because if I do it, my phone camera is going to wobble all over the place. So I'm relying on you guys to tell me what our loyal listeners are having to say.
Neil said hi to you earlier then.
Oh, hi, Neil. Thanks for coming, man. Thanks to everybody for coming. I love the listener section.
Yeah, well, that's why you need to have something where you can read it.
Well, I'm working on it, okay?
Early days of no driving gloves, that was more of a will rule, I think, than Derek and me.
The no electric cars deal.
Yeah.
What about like steam or compressed air? I mean, are other forms of propulsion taboo? Big wind-up springs with clockwork?
Well, no, I mean I think we allowed antique electric vehicles to be discussed. I think it was a no modern electric vehicle rule.
No, we kind of took it to, we were talking so much about electric, we wanted to back off for a few weeks, and Will never liked talking about electric. But Derek and I did an episode year and a half ago talking about alternative methods of propulsion and how we were upset that the federal government was only funding basically or enforcing electric down our throats when there's so many alternative ways that we could propel a vehicle. And there was, just because there was no government money behind it, very few companies were researching it because they have to put up everything at that point and then fight to get their stuff legislated. So we'll see.
I believe that's the episode that I brought up my idea to build the overly redundant car, which now I got to remember how I had it planned. Shoot, how did I have that designed? It was going to be an electric. Nope.
Is this some kind of Rube Goldberg kind of thing where the electric motor
basically
the key to wind the clockwork mechanism?
No, I remember what it was going to be. It was going to have an internal combustion engine that powered a generator, onboard generator, to produce the electricity to run the electrical system that heated the boiler for the steam to then make it a steam-powered car.
That is very complicated. You would definitely win the overly complicated. I'm sorry, overly redundant It would be more redundant if each system worked in parallel, don't you think? Like,
Well, that's true.
if
Yeah,
you
maybe
flip the
overly
switch
complicated is a better
and the
way.
electrical's not
Yeah.
working, you can switch to the boiler, and if everything fails, you can get out your key and stick it in the trunk and wind the thing. And
Yeah,
still get
you're
home.
right. It should be the overly complicated car. Yes.
That's like fire trucks with dual ignition, where they got like the battery and they got the magneto, and it's like, oh, the magneto. You're like, oh man, that's like super high performance. It's like, no, it's just to make sure they could get to the fire, man. They really want.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
ignition
It's so
to work.
when one fails. Yeah.
I think redundant works though, because you have three different methods that you could propel the vehicle with, but you're not efficiently really using any of them to propel the vehicle.
I don't know. See, I guess I think of redundancies as a good thing, like a safety thing. And so to me, if they're in series and not in parallel, then they're not redundant. They're just complicated. Like you
But
have
you're
two.
right. I gotta get
I like
gotta
my
get
steamships
compressed
to have
air.
sailing masts on them still, just in case.
I need to get compressed air system and clock spring system worked into that vehicle. You're right.
You can do it. I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so here's an interesting one that I had never heard of before the other day. Have you heard of the Cherokee automobile from, I believe it was like Oklahoma? It was only around for a couple of years, and was supposedly a real whiz bang thing. I was only introduced to it the other day, and
What
it was
era
suggested to
are we
me.
talking?
This is 1917 to 1920, so World War One and immediately afterward. Was priced what, about $800, $900. So what is that, like Buick territory for the time?
Okay, so keep going.
So the suggestion at this was that it was such a threat to Detroit that their mysterious fire in their paint shop was the doings of someone nefarious. Henry Ford is the favored villain, probably only because people remember him, but it seems like, you know, those characters at GM would be doing it to protect their cash cow at Buick instead. But is an upstart in 1917 way too late to the party? It just seems like it to me, and that Oklahoma is way too off the beaten path to start a.
No, I mean,
although
I don't think it is. You know, I mean, there were upstart companies in the teens and 20s that became some of the major automobile companies.
Well,
yeah, but this is not Chrysler taking over Maxwell. This is somebody starting from scratch.
You can play the same scenario story with Rockefeller and Edison, where Edison and Ford were developing an electric car supposedly, and Rockefeller potentially had Edison's factory research facility burned to the ground because of the imposing threat on oil. I mean, if Ford would have created an electric car with Edison, it would have had a slight economic impact on Rockefeller and possibly the whole automobile industry, you know, in the teens.
I've heard that story.
Yeah.
I've even seen the pictures of Fred Allison sitting in the electric prototype. I have also read where Thomas Edison said the real problem was that the nickel iron battery wasn't anywhere near light enough or efficient enough for them to make use of it like they had planned. So I guess I don't know what to believe.
Well, they say the same thing about batteries today too. Is they're too heavy? We need to make them lighter. We need to make them lighter. But and Rudolph went up against. I think that's where I first heard that scenario was in Rudolph Diesel's book. The kind of obstacles that Rockefeller was even putting up against him to look at alternative. So yeah, I can, you know,
Rudolph Diesel, the man that mysteriously went missing off a steamship.
Yes, but if you read the book, and I highly recommend it, they come up with some that Rudolph Diesel did not perish. at that point in time.
I didn't say he perished. I said he mysteriously disappeared.
He disappeared.
Yeah,
This is true.
that Rudolph Diesel.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to
isn't the
because
same true
Neil.
of like Hiram Maxim?
Yeah, I want to jump in because in the comment section, Neil has corrected you, Dave. It wasn't Cherokee, and I have heard of this one.
It was Geronimo.
It was Geronimo, and I have heard of the Geronimo. Yes.
Okay, so with the true name revealed, does the story ring any more or less true to you?
That could be another good topic for another episode. Is the mysteries of the auto industry, right? Because we've got things like Rudolph Diesel, we've got situations like Geronimo, we've got the mysterious surroundings of what happened to Tucker, right? Preston Tucker and the Tucker automobile. And there's some interesting questions around some of the other early safety cars of Survival, Walter Jerome, and Aurora and Father Giuliano, and some of the mysterious things that happened to those two men. Not that they disappeared or anything, but that investigations were launched into some of their work. Allegations were made against them, and who actually made those allegations, and were they actually hired hitmen in quotations from the big three? No one. There's still mystery behind it.
Tune in next week for automotive conspiracy theories on No Driving Gloves.
I think it'd be a good show.
Geronimo Motors, crazy story. Check it out.
Yeah.
Jason says DeLorean. I could even go as far as bringing it as modern as Fisker.
Mm-hmm.
And the rumors on the second failure of the Fisker Ocean.
Okay, but if we do this episode, and whether it's next week or in a few weeks, I only have one request: that the episode begins and ends with the intro and then the outro of Unsolved Mysteries.
Unfortunately, that is copyrighted.
Don't care, John. We're breaking the rules.
What if we just sing it?
We can recite it.
Yeah, and then I can work on doing the guy's voice and saying what he says.
Robert Stack was a car guy.
I can probably hum it because I'm so far out of key and out of tune. you never know what it was.
Do it on a kazoo.
Oh, I thought it was called auto tune. It's out of tune. I get it now.
Well, we don't do topics anymore, but it could be interesting to pop a couple of automotive mysteries. That would be a neat 5-minute segment in every episode, because I think we have to limit it to 5 minutes, and there's so many mysteries. We could probably hit that for almost at least a year, a 5-minute. Dave does one week. Derek does one week. Dave does one week. Derek does one week.
We get to share the trench coat.
Yes. We can have the communal trench coat.
All right, fellas. Is it time to call it a night?
Yeah, I think it's 11 o'clock your time. So
truly is. 9
actually,
into a pumpkin.
Hang on, before we go, Unsolved Mysteries, little quick tidbit of information. Unsolved Mysteries actually solved one of the many automotive mysteries in history. If you didn't know, they actually did.
Was that one of the families that went missing in the 50s and they dredged up a car or something?
No, it was the episode that talked about Liz Carmichael and the Dale automobile, and that Liz Carmichael was missing and still being looked for. Someone watched it in the town Liz Carmichael was living in and called it in.
Wow.
And Liz Carmichael was arrested.
Ha.
Thanks to Unsolved Mysteries.
Don't be a jerk to your neighbors. They'll turn you into unsolved mysteries.
Yep.
Do you happen to have a box set of Unsolved Mysteries at the museum near the Dale?
You know what? We don't, but I should try to see if I can get that episode because it'd be great to play it. That would be awesome. And we don't have a Dale. We have the Clift commuter cycle.
Well, you could you put the just the DVD of it. You don't even have to play the episode, but you can say they solved the car mystery or something like
that. All right. Now we can wrap up. Now I got my 2 cents out there.
Any parting words from you guys?
Goodbye.
Share the show so we can get more viewers, listeners, and be in the top 10 automotive podcasts, not just the top 50. All right, guys. So share the show.
Actually, we're in the top 40 now. So
ooh,
sure
America's Weekly Top 40.
America's Weekly Top 40 with Casey Kasem.
Nice. Ruh-roh.
And this love and dedication goes out to you all because it's time to get off your ass and go burn some gas because we is out of here.